All right, welcome over to the Twitch side. I know the audio is a little bit quieter than it was over in Zoom, so make sure that you increase your volume while you're in here. Can you give me just a quick yes, no in the chat? Make sure you can hear me okay? Hear me a little bit? Yep, you can hear me? Cool, okay. Let's rock and roll. So we are currently in my office. I'm gonna have to wear a mask a little bit while we go out through the building. Chemical engineering is in SME, so we'll get a brief introduction to SME as we go outside. It's going to be a little harder to hear me through the mask, but it should be okay. Head on out into the hall. And away we go. So this is the undergrad orientation area. So if you ever need to come in and talk to our undergrad advisors, this is where you would do it. It opens up onto this really nice little patio out here. Let me switch you around here. Great place to do studying. It is a little bit noisy right now because we have a bunch of construction behind us. We just added, if you look over there at the top part of the building over here, that is a brand new wing of the building. That just got constructed. It's not even open yet. But I know a large mound of dirt is not particularly nice. But right behind that dirt is a large open area that they're constructing. It's going to have an amphitheater and seating and access to the trolley and all that great stuff over there. So lots of big stuff going on in the SME world now that we're all coming back. Let's head on outside. So like I said, we're in the SME building right now. One of the things that Professor Serbely mentioned was that within SME, hey Joe, I can't switch that around right now. Within SME, we have the Envision Makerspace. So if you're in chemical engineering, you're going to have your first class CENG4 inside the Makerspace, and that'll take place in your very first quarter here. The sun is very bright today. Makerspace is amazing, but I wanted to talk a little bit about CENG4 because when you get into CENG4, you're going to have to set up your academic planning form for the next 4 years. So in this little walking tour that I'm doing here, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the types of courses that you're going to take. Just know that it's kind of weighted towards your junior and senior year. When you get into the junior and senior year, you're going to be taking about 2-3 really tough engineering or science courses per quarter. In the first year or two, it's not as bad. It's about maybe 1 engineering course per quarter. That's if you're on the 4-year program, right? So if you're coming in as a freshman, that's roughly what you can expect. If you're a transfer student, you're packed a little bit more, right? Your schedule is going to be more like 2, 3, 4 engineering courses per quarter because most likely you're on our 2-year plan. We do have a 3-year plan. If you would like to explore the 3-year plan, check with Carla and Renee, but we generally start everybody on the 2-year plan as a transfer student. So as a chemical engineer, when you get into CENG4, the whole purpose of that class is to tell you what chemical engineers do. The shortest way that I can describe it is that we take low value stuff and turn it into high value stuff. So we take seawater and turn it into drinking water. We take cold water and turn it into hot water. We take chemicals and turn them into vaccines. We actually have in our senior lab an experiment that you'll do that makes the vesicles that were used for the COVID vaccine. Not literally those, right? Those were not manufactured in an undergraduate laboratory, I hope. But at any rate, exactly the same principle is covered in there. So I'll take a brief break because we're coming up on our first visual item of interest. One thing that you can explore now that we're back on campus is the Stewart Collection, which is a bunch of art that is placed throughout the campus. There's about 20 or different pieces. And we're coming up on the first one, which is the bear. The bear is 24 feet tall. It weighs 180 tons. It was put in by Tim Hawkinson. I think it was 2005, 2006, something like that, the bear was put in. It is quite massive. Let me see if I can actually get a little bit closer to it. So this is the Bear by Tim Hawkinson. It has also had a variety of modifications that I believe students have made. At one point, it had heart glasses for Valentine's Day. It also had a Harry Potter system, what would you call that, costume put on once, which I have to assume is related to Harry Potter. Bunch of granite blocks, and the idea that Tim Hawkinson said was it was supposed to be in contrast to all the steel and concrete around it, right? A very natural installation versus the science and engineering and the modern feel of the buildings around it. All right, so while we're on to our next item, we're going to look at a couple of different Stewart items. I'll keep talking about chemical engineering. Hey again, Joe. In my mind, it's divided into two aspects. There's sort of the traditional area of chemical engineering, and there's the more modern area of chemical engineering. Traditional chemical engineering is kind of the stuff that is done solo by chemical engineers. It's things like separating materials, right? Maybe you've seen distillation in a chemistry lab or something like that. Mixing materials. So the one I love, and it is still on my bucket list to do, is to find a crayon manufacturer so that I can go into their facility and watch how they make crayons, right? They have to mix a bunch of different things, wax and additives and colors and things that make crayons delicious. All of that has to go in there, and it's not easy to get them to stay together for a long period of time. Obviously, right in the name is chemical reactors. So we do have an entire class devoted to chemical reaction engineering, which I teach. I'll see you in there. And then things like heat exchangers, right? Making hot things cold and cold things hot. Very traditional chemical engineering. And then I'll tell you about the modern side in a minute here. But we are now to the second item on the Stewart collection, which is admittedly a little hard to see during the day. It's not great, but this is called Vices and Virtues. You can see some neon writing up there on the top of that building. There are 7 vices and 7 virtues up there. This was put in by Bruce Nauman, and they sort of rotate around. I think the vices go counterclockwise and the virtues go clockwise. There's about a mile of neon tubing up there. And later on at night, it's a neat place to show up and take a look at all the vices and virtues. There is one point, I think, a week where all 7 of them, or I should say all 14 of them, are all lit up at exactly the same time. And that was installed in, I think it was 1990, 88, sorry, had that wrong. All right, so the modern side of chemical engineering, right? I said we were talking about traditional, the kind of stuff that we do solo as a chemical engineer, but with the way that the world is right now, we've solved most of the problems that people can do by themselves sitting in a room. And so modern chemical engineering is very multidisciplinary. And so a lot of the applications of modern chemical engineering will require you to work with folks that are not chemical engineers. Things like clean energy. It's a big portion of our efforts here on campus. We've got a couple of different institutes here that are working towards clean energy, things like solar panels, battery storage is another huge one. Water purification, like the Carlsbad desalination plant that we just put in 4 or 5 years ago, a little bit up north of here. That thing is just chock full of chemical engineering inside of it. Bioengineering, like I had mentioned before, manufacturing of vaccines on a large scale. Pharmaceuticals in general is a big portion where chemical engineers can work with other folks on larger projects. And of course, nanoengineering, right? We are inside the Department of Nanoengineering because we can collaborate very easily with other scientists and engineers who work on things that aren't traditional chemical engineering. Particularly our transport skills are quite helpful for a lot of that. Hence why we have something like the nanoparticle experiment in our chemical engineering lab. So we've got a couple more things to look at around campus now that we're here. So one of them is up here. This house sitting there is where the dean lives. So he gets a tilted house. That is called Fallen Star. It was put in by an artist named Do-Hoo Seo. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm not sure if I do. He was from South Korea. He came over to the US in the 90s. And something that really struck him that I felt like our students would really sort of connect with is it feels very out of place, right? You've got feelings of displacement when you first show up to a new place. And so he put a house up on top of Jacobs Hall and put it on a crazy angle. You used to actually be able to go inside of the house and walk around, and they would make you put your drinks and everything down because you would tend to spill them. But it is unfortunately closed to the pandemic. But that was put in 2012. We are going to finish up our little tour of the area up here in the library. So this is Geisel Library. I'm going to slowly walk our way up there to make sure my battery doesn't die. Geisel Library, it was designed in the 70s. I'm going to be honest here, I don't know when it was built. Everything I read just says it was designed in the 70s. It doesn't say when it was built. It was actually named something other than Geisel Library at one point. But it was renamed Geisel back in the 80s. It's got a couple of different levels. As you go higher and higher up, it gets more and more quiet. So the top 2 levels are supposed to be dead silent, right? For doing homework and doing exams, that sort of stuff. Supposed to be dead silent. You can talk on the lower levels, but it gets quieter and quieter as you go up. It's also got some subterranean space, which I think is really neat because they have gardens that are subterranean that you can walk in there and take a look at, which is pretty cool if you ask me. The other thing that's pretty neat is the path that I'm walking on is actually a series of hexagonal slate pieces, and it's arced very much, so it's a little bit hard to tell that it is curved left to right on the camera, but do be careful when you're walking down. Hey look, we got another streamer. Well, I think they're just on a FaceTime, whatever. This snake was put in, well, it's called Snake Path. It was put in by, oh boy, now I'm gonna have to think. Alexis Smith. It is 560 feet long, 10 feet wide. I mean, it is just massive. The hexagons are supposed to represent the scales of the snake, of course, but it becomes a little bit more obvious that it's a snake up here at the top. It has its own Garden of Eden. So this tiny little garden right here is referred to as the Garden of Eden. The idea that Alexis Smith had was it was supposed to be sort of a symbolic path, you know, from the other area up to the library, representing your own path. Sorry, there's a jet going overhead. Your own path of what she called innocence and knowledge. I'll let you be the, sorry, the jets are going overhead again. The jets are quite annoying, but unfortunately it's part of the campus. So this is the top part of the snake. So I just wanted to wrap it up here because I know I'm coming up on time. The last things I'll leave you with are a couple of frequently asked questions about chemical engineering. Will I like it? Probably, if you like STEM style problems. Can I get into research? Absolutely. Dr. Lepomi posted a link of a summary of all the good ways that you can go about finding research. Am I going to be able to get a job? Normally I would say yes, but in a pandemic, I'm not going to lie, I've never tried to figure out what the job market looks like in a pandemic because we've never had one before. And then last but not least, the only things that I'll add is, for my advice to you, get better advice, talk to more people than just one person about what kind of things you should be doing, because everybody will have followed a different path and they'll have different advice. Form a study group, and then get help early and often. Come talk to your faculty, your advisors, your instructors. We are here to help. That's what we do. We are happy to help you. So please come and talk to us. If you're in chemical engineering, like I said, we are going to do all of this in CNG4 to get you a better idea of exactly what we do as chemical engineers. So I'm going to wrap it up there. My battery is almost dead, but I'm going to hang out in case anybody has any questions. But please do remember now, go back over to the Zoom meeting because AICHE and NETS are a couple of student orgs that you're going to want to learn about. But I'll hang out here just a little bit so you don't get randomly kicked out of the stream. But that is my entire introduction to chemical engineering. I look forward to seeing y'all. Stay safe, stay vaccinated, stay masked, and we'll see you soon, guys. So remember, head back over to the Zoom meeting now. Yep, you're welcome. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I don't think you can actually like, but whatever. It is nice up here. It is very nice up here. Hey, that is a razor blade. Let's pick that up right now. Oh no, it's not a razor blade. It's a little graduating hat. That's cute. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream. So thanks for hanging out with us. Good luck in your classes. We'll see y'all soon. Bye, y'all.